We are following breaking news in the United States. A federal appeals court has now reinstated Donald Trump's tariffs. Earlier, a judgment from the U.S. Court of International Trade blocked many of the tariffs the president imposed since taking office, saying they exceeded his authority. We get more on this from the CBC's Katie Simpson live in Washington. So, Katie, tell us more about this court ruling.
Well, what a chaotic 24 hours it's been. First, a court strikes down the tariffs, saying they're illegal, that Donald Trump overstepped his power and the tariffs were going to be put on hold. And then an appeals court just a short time ago just ruled that while this decision, the original decision to block the tariffs, is being appealed, well, the Trump administration can continue to collect tariffs. This, of course, applies to the broad majority of tariffs the Trump administration has imposed. The ones that they justified under the guise of national security. So we're talking about the tariffs related to fentanyl and border security applied to Canada, as well as Mexico and China, as well as those broader country-based tariffs that Donald Trump announced on his so-called Liberation Day. Those had been announced, imposed, reduced, and right now they're at a global 10% baseline, essentially. Those, again, were put on hold yesterday and then reinstated today. So this means that as the Trump administration takes its next steps and continues with its legal fight, they're vowing to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, that the Trump administration can continue with its tariff regime. For businesses looking for some certainty, looking for some relief in this moment, the only thing we can really say is that for now, those tariffs do remain in place. It's not necessarily what Canadian businesses were hoping for, or workers who are concerned about the impact tariffs are having on their jobs or the future of their jobs. But for now, the tariffs remain in place until the next steps sort of unfold through the legal. It's going to be a major legal fight in the United States, as this is really a pillar of the Trump administration's economic policy as well as its foreign policy.
So, Katie, tell us more about what the White House is saying about this major legal fight.
Well, the White House is really not pleased. It essentially was the majority of the questions today at the White House press briefing with Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, were largely about this tariff fight. Have a listen to how the White House is lashing out at the court that ruled that the tariffs are illegal.
The courts should have no role here. There is a troubling and dangerous trend of unelected judges inserting themselves into the presidential decision-making process. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country.
So the Trump administration says it already has appealed the initial decision. And again, it's being granted an opportunity to continue collecting these tariffs for now as the legal fight unfolds. They're saying they'll take this case all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. So really, the Trump administration is bearing down for a major fight. There has been so much uncertainty when it comes to the Trump trade policy agenda that it's actually led to some interesting conversations on Wall Street that have really upset the president. On Wall Street, analysts have sort of come up with a phrase to describe the sort of extreme back and forth Trump has taken when it comes to tariffs. Before any of this court case came out, it was called TACO. Trump always chickens out. It's something that was coined by a writer on Wall Street, a financial analyst who works for the Financial Times, and it was picked up by others, and it really upset the president. And so after hearing about that, being frustrated, and now having this setback through the courts, it's not been a great week for the president. But again, for the time being, those tariffs can remain in place.
Katie, thank you. The CBC's Katie Simpson live in Washington. I want to bring in the CBC's Marina von Stackelberg in Ottawa. So, Marina, this is another roller coaster ride that we are on when it comes to Donald Trump's trade war with Canada and the world. How is Canada responding?
Well, obviously, this is just news coming through here in Ottawa as well. And so we have reached out to the Prime Minister's office for comment on this latest development, a reaction to the U.S. Appeals Court allowing these Trump tariffs to continue through this appeal process. The initial court ruling to have these tariffs blocked was welcomed by Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney said it was very much in line with this government's view that these tariffs are illegal and they're completely unjustified. Have a listen to more of Carney's response earlier today in the House of Commons.
The government welcomes yesterday's decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which is consistent with Canada's long-standing position that the U.S. IEEPA tariffs were unlawful as well as unjustified. That said, we recognize that our trading relationship with the United States is still profoundly and adversely threatened and affected by similarly unjustified 232 tariffs against steel, aluminum, and the auto sector, as well as continuing threats of tariffs against other strategic sectors, including lumber, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. It therefore remains the top priority of Canada's new government to establish a new economic and security relationship with the United States and to strengthen our collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world.
You heard Prime Minister Mark Carney talk about 232 tariffs. Those are imposed by Trump for national security. And this is important to note because this court ruling and all that will transpire, it only deals with other sort of tariffs, the other tariffs against goods. It doesn't deal with the tariffs that have been lodged against, the real kind of big hits to Canada's economy. That includes the auto sector, steel, and aluminum. And so that's completely separate, and those tariffs remain in place. And that's something that the Prime Minister was speaking about there. Now, we did not have the Deputy Conservative Leader, Melissa Lantsman, speak specifically to this news, but we did get a social media post from Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre. It's important to note this was earlier. We have not gotten a reaction yet to this latest development, but I think it's important to still note what he said. Poilievre writing, "We need true free trade so workers earn more, prices fall, and businesses boom on both sides of the border. But we can no longer put all our eggs in the U.S. basket. Too risky." I want to also throw to a clip here of the Bloc Québécois leader, Yves-François Blanchet, weighing in on this court case. Have a listen to what he had to say earlier.
It does give to future Canadian negotiators a better position. It reminds us that when you have to negotiate something with a friend, with your closest friend and ally, you should not start by creating false reasons to impose tariffs and try to intimidate your partner.
Andrew, though, this, of course, is a situation that is so in flux, literally changing by the hour. And so it kind of leads Canada, well, all indications we've been getting from the Prime Minister's office is that Canada will very much stay the course in terms of its counter tariffs, just because this is such a developing situation. It's important to note, too, the White House press secretary just earlier today was talking about other legal authorities that the U.S. would potentially use to bring these tariffs back in if they were taken away.
It sounds as though they are determined to have this, and they'll find ways to do it no matter what. How does this court decision, though, impact the Canada-U.S. relationship?
Yeah, and so it was interesting. Mark Carney had some very pointed words about this. He's talked about the fact that Canada is still negotiating with the United States to have a new trade and security partnership. But in his opening comments there earlier today, he talked about how Canada will continue to find, in his words, reliable trading partners and allies around the world. Essentially, countries that Canada can count on to not try and pull this sort of stuff and make it so hard on this economy. It's interesting, too, because today in Ottawa, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is meeting. This is basically a group that represents municipalities, their leadership, their mayors across the country. And of course, tariffs are top of mind. In speaking with some of the mayors there, some of my colleagues, a lot of those mayors are saying that these tariffs are impacting their communities, too, stalling business decisions, even at the city level. I want to throw to a clip of the London Mayor, Josh Morgan, who's said that, the mayors in Canada have been even trying to talk to mayors in the United States to try and get some movement here. Have a listen to what he had to say.
But what I'll say is this does not stop the dialogue or discussion that we need to continue to be having with the U.S. administration, with American cities, with our partners in the U.S., or the partnership that we've been able to foster here in Canada. The sense of national unity based on this external threat to our economy and sovereignty has not only brought the orders of government together in a way that I've never seen before, and many people comment on, but also our collective municipalities together in a way that we were strong in the first place, but we are as united as I've ever seen us.
So in terms of Canada's response at all levels, it's very much stay the course, continue with the measures that Canada has brought in, including those counter tariffs against the United States.
Marina, thank you. The CBC's Marina von Stackelberg live in Ottawa. Meanwhile, markets closed a short time ago after all of this uncertainty surrounding the president's controversial tariffs. And the CBC's senior business correspondent, Peter Armstrong, joins us now live. So, Peter, where did the markets land today?
Look, I'm talking more and more about markets like, Charlie Brown and Lucy and the football. They keep expecting to see something that will give them some certainty to act on. And this morning, they saw the announcement from the court the night before. Asian markets took off. North American markets really soared through the morning. And then as it sort of got to be digested a little bit, that the White House is still trying to figure out ways around this ruling, that it's going to appeal. But even if it loses the appeal, it's got all this list of, in the words of Peter Navarro, plenty of other options to impose these tariffs regardless. The market started to lose steam in that rally. At the end of the day, the S&P rose like 0.4%. The Dow was up 0.3%. The S&P TSX, so the Toronto Stock Exchange, was down 72 points. So a real mixed day, but it speaks, Andrew, to that sense that markets don't know what to make of any of this news. They're wary of reacting too much one way or the other. And so they're just kind of riding this out. And you can't blame them, because at every turn, you get some news that makes you think, oh, okay, I understand how that's going to play out. We can proceed as though that's going to be the thing. And then 10 minutes later, you get something that'll spin your head around and make you think it might be the exact opposite. And so investors and businesses, the amount of businesses I've spoken with today that tell me this changes nothing. They'd love it if the court would uphold this. They have no expectation that even if it does, the White House wouldn't find a way of changing its mind and using some other measure to impose these tariffs. So all of that uncertainty, Andrew, that you and I have talked about for months now, is still very much in play. And if anything, I can kind of argue the fact that the uncertainty has actually increased as a result of all of this, because we're beginning to see how the lawfare battle, the legal battle around these, is going to play out. And it's not, as this whole story, it's not going to be one straight line from point A to point B.
Peter, thank you. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong.